cold bank pen. That's what I remember most. It felt like a hot iron pressed against a wound I'd pretended didn't exist. They thought I was just Mom, a senile old woman, a bottomless wallet, a quiet presence in my own home. They thought I was a bottomless well. They never expected that one day. The well would decide to run dry on its own. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 62 years old, and for 40 of those years, I was a librarian. I curated facts. I managed archives. I believed in the order of things, in the Dewey Decimal System, in the quiet integrity of the written word. Now, I am retired, living in a small, quiet town just outside of Denver, Colorado. The silence in this house is an active thing. It is not peaceful. It presses against the windows, a cold, deliberate weight. This house used to be filled with the sound of Arthur, his booming laugh, his terrible puns, the sawdust from his workshop. But Arthur has been dead for 3 years. The coldness I feel now is an insult to his memory. 18 months ago, my son, Marcus, and his wife, Sabrina, sat right here at this kitchen table, the same table I am sitting at now, staring at the polished wood grain, tracing a coffee ring with my fingernail. They came with smiles and concern. I was lonely, they said. I was vulnerable. Let us help you, Mom. Marcus had insisted. Let's set up a joint savings account, just so we can help you manage things. Sabrina, all bright teeth and expensive perfume, chimed in. And you can see the profits from Marcus's new company, Apex Creative Solutions. It's taking off. Eleanor, we want you to be part of it. We can build our future together. So I signed, Eleanor Vance, a woman who could cross-reference obscure 19th century periodicals, signed away access to my life, my pension, the entirety of my savings. The money Arthur and I had meticulously saved it all went into that joint account. For a year, it seemed fine. I saw statements. There were small deposits, which they proudly pointed to as profits. I ignored the larger withdrawals. Start-up costs, Marcus would say with a wave of his hand. You have to spend money to make money, Mom. But I am a librarian. I am trained to notice patterns. And I noticed, 3 months ago, that the profits stopped. Completely. Yet the withdrawals continued, faster and larger. My nest egg, the one meant to last me another 20 years, was hemorrhaging. That is not what broke the silence this morning. It was the mail. 2 envelopes. The first was a bill from a credit card company I did not recognize. A bill addressed to me, Eleanor Vance. It listed a balance due of $12,000. The itemized charge was for high-end office equipment. I have not worked in an office in 5 years. The second envelope was from Mountain Crest Regional Bank. It was thin, formal. I opened it with a cold dread settling in my stomach. It was a single, curt notice. The joint savings account was overdrawn. I read the sentence 3 times. Overdrawn. A savings account. How does a savings account become overdrawn? Savings accounts are finite. When the money is gone, it is simply gone. You cannot spend what is not there. Unless, of course, it is not a savings account at all. Unless it is linked to something else. Something I did not authorize. The coffee in my mug was cold, but I drank it anyway. The bitter taste matched the one in my mouth. I heard Arthur's voice, as clear as if he were standing by the stove. It was something he said a month before the cancer took him, his hand weak but his grip firm on mine. Don't ever let anyone get between you and your checkbook. Eleanor, he had whispered, his breath ragged. Not even our boy. I had dismissed it then as the paranoia of a sick man, a man who loved his son but knew his flaws. I had told him not to worry. I looked back at the 2 letters on the table, the $12,000 charge for things I had never seen, and the notice of an impossible debt. A sick, cold realization washed over me, sharp and clean as broken glass. This was not mismanagement. This was not a series of youthful mistakes or bad business luck. This was a plan. And I was not the partner they claimed I was. I was the target. I remember the day it all started. It was 6 months after the funeral. The house was still suffocatingly quiet, the air thick with Arthur's absence. I was not just grieving. I was adrift, a boat without a rudder. Then they arrived. Sabrina came bearing an enormous, expensive arrangement of lilies and orchids, flowers too grand for my simple living room. They smelled funereal. "Mom," she said, her voice dripping with a practiced, syrupy concern. She always called me Mom, a title I once found endearing. "You're just so lonely here all by yourself. It worries us sick. Please, let us take care of you." I looked at Marcus, my son, my boy. He did look tired, thin and pale, dark circles under his eyes. He played the part of the stressed entrepreneur perfectly. "She's right, Mom," he said, avoiding my gaze, focusing instead on the fireplace. "It is just a guarantee. The company, Apex, it is right on the edge of something huge. We are bidding for a massive state project, but we need to show significant liquid capital to even be considered." I, a librarian, understood the need for resources. "A guarantee?" I asked. "Just a formality," Sabrina said, placing her manicured hand on my arm. "The bank just needs to see that we have assets, that our family has backing." And then came the real request, buried so deep in the soft language of helping and family that I barely felt the sting. It was not just about opening a joint account for my pension. They needed me to sign a guarantee for their business loan. And the only asset I had worth guaranteeing anything was this house. This house that Arthur and I had worked 30 years to pay off. "They will never touch the house, Mom," Marcus said, finally looking at me, his eyes wide with a desperate sincerity I mistook for ambition. "It is just paperwork, a signature. The loan is practically self-funding once we land the contract." So I signed. I sat at this very table and signed the papers from Mountain Crest. I mortgaged my paid-off home to a bank I barely knew, for a company that did not exist, for a son who was a stranger. The joint savings account was the masterstroke. "This will be the trust fund," Sabrina explained, as if to a child. "We will set it up to pay the monthly interest on the business loan automatically. Your pension can go right in, and the profits from Apex will go in, too. You will not have to worry about a single bill. My money, of course, not theirs. My money would pay the interest on the loan they took out against my house. The depth of my stupidity is a physical weight. I feel it in my chest. I am not just losing my savings. I am actively funding the theft of my own home. That overdraft notice was not just about a lack of funds. It meant the account was empty, and the bank was still trying to pull the interest payment. The payment that was now my sole responsibility. I remember, a few weeks after I signed, Sabrina walked through my living room, running her fingers along the cherry wood sideboard Arthur had restored. You have such tasteful things, Eleanor, she had murmured, her eyes lingering on my collection of antique clocks. I thought it was a compliment. I realize now, with a nauseating clarity, that it was an appraisal. She was not just visiting her mother-in-law, she was walking through her inheritance, calculating the value of each piece. Why did I do it? The question echoes in the cold kitchen. Because the silence was too loud. Because after Arthur was gone, their attention, however false, felt like a lifeline. I wanted to be Mom. I wanted to be necessary to them, to be part of the vibrant, exciting future they painted. I was so desperate not to be a lonely old woman in an empty house that I became a fool. I look across the room to the mantelpiece, at the silver-framed photograph of Arthur and me on our 25th anniversary. His arm is around me, his eyes crinkling at the corners with that easy smile. I cannot meet his gaze. I have failed you, Arthur? I whisper to the empty room. I have failed us both. The shame sat like undigested food in my stomach for an hour. Then, something else took over. A lifetime of habit. The librarian inside me, the part of me that believes every question has an answer, pushed the grief aside. I am a researcher. I needed information. I grabbed my keys. But I did not start my car. I paused, looking at my own laptop on the kitchen counter. Sabrina had been so helpful setting it up for me last Christmas. A new, fast computer. I had been so touched. Now, the thought of it made my skin crawl. What else had she helped me with? Was she monitoring my search history? The paranoia felt sudden and absolute. But it was not paranoia. It was logic. I would not use my home computer. I drove the 15 minutes to the main branch of the Denver Public Library, my old territory. I felt safer there, surrounded by the quiet hum of public access, a place of facts. I walked past the new, cheerful children's corner I had helped design and sat at a public terminal in the back, the plastic keyboard clicking loudly in the silence. My fingers, stiff with arthritis, moved with old purpose. I did not search for fraud. I searched for facts. First, the Colorado Secretary of State Business Database. I typed in Apex Creative Solutions. A result appeared instantly. The name, the ID number, the date of incorporation, and the status. Status administrative dissolution. I read the definition. Failure to file annual report. The date of dissolution was 6 months ago. My breath hitched. The company Marcus was bidding on a major project with. The company that needed my house as collateral had not legally existed for half a year. The profits he'd been showing me were a lie. The entire thing was a phantom. A colder, sharper fear began to spread through my veins. If the company was a lie, what about the loan I opened a new tab? The county recorder's office. Property records. I typed in my own address. The address of the house Arthur and I had bought in 1984. My name, Eleanor Vance, appeared. I saw the first mortgage, the one I had signed 18 months ago, the one I believed was supporting a legitimate business, and then I saw it. Directly below, a second entry. Home equity line of credit. A new lender. The date of record was just 3 months ago. The amount was for $50,000. I had never seen that document. I had never signed that document. I would remember signing for $50,000. My mind raced back, sorting, cataloguing. The signature on the first loan they must have. They must have traced it, or copied it. forged it. My own son, forging my name, and the credit card bill, the one that arrived this morning. $12,000 for office equipment. It was not a credit card. Of course it was not. It was a draw. The first draw against the fraudulent second mortgage. They were not just draining my pension anymore. They had run out of that. Now they were actively, criminally, digging into the equity of my home. They were spending my house, brick by brick. I logged off the computer and walked on numb legs back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, the hum of the library's ventilation system a dull roar in my ears. This was not a son in financial trouble. This was not a family crisis. This was a crime. This was methodical, predatory fraud. And I was the prey. I drove home from the library, but I did not go inside my house. I sat in the driveway, the engine off, the key cold in my hand. My first instinct was to drive straight to the Mountain Crest branch and demand answers, to close the account, to scream at the manager. But I stopped myself. The librarian in me, the part that catalogues and cross-references, kicked in. If they were smart enough to forge a second mortgage, they were smart enough to protect their access. Sabrina was always on her phone. Always. "Just checking my alerts," she would say. What if the joint account had alerts? What if the moment I stepped up to a teller and asked to make a change, a notification was sent straight to her phone? They would know. They would panic. And I had no idea what they were capable of when cornered. No, I could not just walk in the front door. I needed an ally. Someone inside. My mind went back 3 years, to the awful, blurry month after Arthur died. I was sitting in a stiff chair at the bank, a mountain of forms in front of me. I had started to cry, quietly, overwhelmed by the legal jargon. A young man had kneeled by my chair, his voice gentle. "Mrs. Vance, let's take a break," he had said. His name was Javier. He was not my assigned representative. He just saw me struggling. He spent 2 hours with me, explaining every line, helping me sort Arthur's estate. When we finished, he slid me his business card. It had his personal cell number written on the back. "For any will or estate emergencies," he'd said with a kind smile. "Sometimes you just need a direct line." I had kept the card, tucked inside Arthur's old checkbook. I pulled my phone from my purse, my fingers trembling. I was not calling the bank's main number. I was calling Javier. He picked up on the third ring. "Javier." His voice was professional, crisp. "Javier, this is Eleanor Vance, Arthur Vance's wife. You helped me 3 years ago." There was a pause, and his voice softened immediately. "Mrs. Vance. Of course. I remember. It is good to hear from you. Is everything all right?" "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "No, it is not. I am in terrible trouble, and it involves my son and an account at your bank." I explained it as quickly and clearly as I could. The joint account, the dissolved company, the forged second mortgage, the $12,000 draw. The silence on his end of the line was long. It was not the silence of confusion. It felt heavy, calculated. "Mrs. Vance," he said finally, and his voice had lost all its warmth. It was sharp, serious. "First, you must not, under any circumstances, call them. Do not text them. Do not let them know you suspect anything. Do you understand?" "Yes," I said. "Second, I need you to come to the bank tomorrow morning at exactly 10 o'clock. Do not come through the main lobby. Park in the employee lot at the back. off Oak Street. I will meet you at the staff entrance. A cold thrill of fear and validation ran through me. Javier. Why? What is going on? Mrs. Vance, he said, and I could hear him typing. My job? I am not just a personal banker. I am the head of compliance and fraud for this branch. Your joint account. Mrs. Vance. It has been on my internal watch list for 3 weeks. My head swam. You knew, I suspected, he corrected. The velocity of the withdrawals, the source of the deposit stopping. It had all the markers of elder financial abuse. But I cannot act on a suspicion. I need a report from the primary victim. You. He paused. You were right about the alerts. They have push notifications set for any transaction over $500 and any change to the account profile. If you had walked up to a teller, they would have known before you finished your sentence. So what do we do? I asked, my voice shaking. You are not coming here tomorrow to withdraw money. Mrs. Vance, you are coming here to file a report as a victim of a crime. We are going to lock them out. We are going to freeze everything. But we have to do it in the right order, and we have to do it with surgical precision. The plan was simple. I would enter through the employee door. I would be taken directly to his office on the 3rd floor. I was to bring every piece of paper, the overdraft notice, the credit card bill for the $12,000, my laptop with the printouts from the Secretary of State and the County Recorder's office. Bring it all, Javier said, his voice firm, reassuring. They built a trap. Tomorrow, we build a firewall. That evening, the phone rang, its shrill cry cutting through the silence of the house. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the 2 envelopes spread before me like a death sentence. The caller ID flashed Sabrina. I let it ring 3 times, took a deep breath, and picked up. Hello? Mom Eleanor? The voice was a trill, a sound as bright and hollow as a cheap wind chime. I was just calling to check on you. You have been on my mind all day. Do you need me to swing by with groceries? Anything at all? My hand tightened around the $12,000 credit card bill. The paper crinkled. I am fine, dear, I said, my voice sounding surprisingly steady to my own ears. I do not need anything. Thank you. Wonderful. That is just wonderful to hear, she chirped. And then, the pivot. As smooth and practiced as a snake shedding its skin. Oh, by the way, you know that big Apex project Marcus is finalizing? Well, we are this close. We just need a little more grease. You know, to move the final pieces into place. One last investment. Mum. We think about $20,000 should close it. The air in my lungs turned to ice. 20,000. On top of the 12,000 they had already stolen. Sabrina, I said, my voice flat. I thought my money was gone. I thought the savings were empty. A laugh came through the receiver, a sharp, tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, Mom, do not be so silly, she said, as if scolding a toddler. I am not talking about the savings. I am talking about the second line, the HELOC. It has got plenty of room. We can even refinance it for more. It is so simple. We will just need you to sign a few things. There it was, a full confession, delivered with the breezy confidence of a sociopath. They had taken 12,000. Now they wanted 20,000 more. They were not just bleeding me. They were planning to exsanguinate me, to drain every last drop of equity from Arthur's house until only the shell remained. I stood up. the chair scraping against the tile. I have to go to the bank tomorrow morning, I said, injecting a note of frail confusion into my voice. To check on some paperwork. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. The chirping, the brightness, all of it vanished. For a full 5 seconds, there was nothing but dead air. When she spoke again, her voice was a different instrument. It was flat, cold, and sharp as a scalpel. The bank. What for? I just need to look at the statements, I said, trying to sound vague. You do not need to do that. Eleanor, she snapped. The mom was gone. I have all the statements. I can bring them over, or I can check it online for you right now. What do you need to know? No, I said, and this time, my voice was my own. It was the voice of the library director. I want to go in person. I will be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I pressed the end call button before she could form another word. I stood in the silent kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had done it. I had pulled the pin. Javier had told me not to alert them, but they had forced my hand. They were coming for more. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I had just started a clock. They would not wait. They would react. And I had until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Sleep did not come. It was not even a possibility. The adrenaline of the phone call had burned away any exhaustion, leaving behind a vibrating, cold dread. I spent the night as a ghost in my own home, walking from room to room, my hand trailing along the walls. I stopped in the study. I touched the spines of Arthur's books, the worn leather of his favourite armchair. The house was a museum of our life together. I kept turning the same questions over and over in my mind, searching for the moment I had failed. When had this started? Was it when I paid off Marcus's first credit card in college? Was it when I let them move back in after their last financial setback? Had I, in my desperation to be a good mother, become an accomplice? Was I so terrified of the silence, so afraid of the suffocating loneliness after Arthur's passing, that I had traded my security for the illusion of family? Yes. The answer was yes. I stood in the study, and a different realization settled over me. My love for Marcus was an immovable object, a fact of my biology. But trust was not. Trust was a structure, and they had demolished it. I could love my son and still recognize that he was a danger to me. My gaze fell on an old, dusty file box on the top shelf of the study closet. I pulled it down. Inside, beneath old tax returns, was my life, my real life, my diploma, Master of Library Science, a plaque for 25 years of service, awards from the State Library Association for archival management. I was not a senile old woman. I was an information specialist. I was a professional researcher. They had mistaken my grief for stupidity. I had mistaken it for weakness. We were both wrong. The fog cleared. Action. I needed a plan. I picked up my phone. My fingers were steady. I dialed a 24-hour locksmith. I need all the locks on my home rekeyed, I said. Tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. My next call was to the lawyer Javier had recommended, the one specializing in elder fraud. It was after midnight. I knew I would get voicemail. I did not care. I left a message, my voice as clear and precise as if I were dictating a catalogue entry. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am calling on the recommendation of Javier at Mountain Crest Bank. I am the victim of financial fraud and forgery. My son, Marcus Vance, and his wife, Sabrina Vance, have fraudulently secured a second mortgage on my property. I will be at the bank at 10 o'clock in the morning to file a formal report. I require immediate legal representation. I went to my bedroom and pulled a small overnight bag from the closet. I packed toiletries, a change of clothes, my wallet. Then I went to Arthur's desk. In the back of the deep bottom drawer, taped to the underside, I felt for the familiar worn cover of a small navy blue passbook. It was an account at a small credit union across town. An account Arthur had opened for me, in my name only, the day I retired. Just in case, he had said, and I never questioned it. I opened it. Tucked inside the first sleeve was a single folded note. Arthur's familiar, strong handwriting. It was not a letter. It was 7 words. In case the boy is like his father. I sank onto the edge of the bed. His father. He did not mean himself. He meant my first husband. The man I divorced when Marcus was a baby. The charlatan who had charmed me and then tried to steal my inheritance. Arthur had adopted Marcus, loved him, raised him as his own in every way. But he had seen it. He had seen that sliver of genetic ice, that easy, selfish charm. Arthur had known this was possible. He had seen the wolf at the door, even when I saw only my son. The last, weak ember of maternal guilt died, smothered by the cold truth. This was not a mistake. This was his nature. I closed the passbook and put it in my bag. The shame vanished. The fear vanished. All that was left was a cold, hard resolve. They were not just stealing from me. They were trying to steal the life Arthur and I had built. They were trying to steal the very roof he had died under. I would not lose this house. I looked at the car's clock. It was 9:50 in the morning. I pulled my sedan into the employee parking lot behind the Mountain Crest branch. My heart a cold, hard knot in my chest. I felt exposed, as if a sign were hanging over my head. Javier was standing just inside a plain metal security door, exactly as he had promised. He was not wearing his banker's suit jacket. His white shirt sleeves were rolled up. He looked serious. He held the door open as I approached. "Mrs. Vance," he said, his voice low and calm. "Are you ready?" I clutched my tote bag, heavy with the paper trail of my own ruin. I nodded. "I am." We did not walk through the main lobby. He led me down a sterile, quiet corridor, past the employee break room, to a service elevator. He used a keycard to call it. "You will not be seen by anyone on the main floor," he said, anticipating my fear. "Compliance is on the 3rd floor. It is a secure zone." The elevator opened into an office that looked nothing like the friendly, open space downstairs. This was a place of cubicles and focused quiet. He led me into a glass-walled conference room. 2 other people were already standing at the table. "Mrs. Vance," Javier said, making the introductions. "This is our branch manager, Ms. Albright, and this is Mr. Harris, our head of security." Ms. Albright was a woman in her 50s, her expression professional and severe. She did not waste time on apologies or sympathy. "Mrs. Vance, Javier has given us the outline. What you are alleging is extremely serious. Please, show us exactly what you found." This, I knew how to do. I was a librarian. I organize chaos for a living. I took a breath and began. "First," I said, placing the printout on the polished table. "The Secretary of State Business, filing for Apex Creative Solutions." You will see it was administratively dissolved 6 months ago for failure to file. I slid the next paper over. Second, the overdraft notice for the joint savings account, which arrived yesterday. I paused, then laid down the final, damning evidence. Third, the printout from the county recorder's office, showing a $50,000 home equity line of credit filed against my property 3 months ago. I pulled the last document from my bag, my original, legitimate mortgage from 18 months ago. And finally, a copy of my true signature from the first loan. If you compare it to the signature on the HELOC application, which I obtained from the recorder's website, you will see it is a forgery, a trace forgery. They did not even do it well. Mr. Harris, the security expert, picked up the two signatures, holding them up to the light. He looked at Ms. Albright and gave a single, sharp nod. "That is all we need," Ms. Albright said. She looked at Javier. "Proceed." Javier turned to the laptop at the head of the table. "Okay, Mrs. Vance," he said, his fingers poised over the keyboard. "We are going to execute a series of actions. The moment I touch the first account, it is possible they will receive an alert. We must move quickly and in the correct sequence. This is a surgical operation." He began to type. Step 1. The fraudulent loan. Based on your official affidavit of forgery, I am placing an immediate administrative freeze on the home equity line of credit, number ending in 4492. This freeze is effective immediately, pending a full criminal investigation. He clicked. Done. They cannot draw another cent from your house. His fingers moved again. Step 2. Your security. We are opening a new, standalone personal account in your name only. This account is being domiciled at our Cherry Creek branch, not this one. It will have no online access and no connection to any of your old accounts. He looked at me. I am placing a level 5 alert on it. What is that? I asked. It means, Ms. Albright said, her voice firm, that no one can access it, not by phone, not online. The only way to access these funds is for you to be physically present at that branch with 2 separate forms of government-issued identification. It is a vault. Step 3, Javier said, his eyes on the screen. The joint savings account, the one you share with Marcus and Sabrina. He looked up at me, his gaze steady. As a co-owner, you have the full legal right to close this account. Any remaining funds, and I see there are a few $100s left, will be transferred immediately into your new, secure account. Do I have your authorization? I thought of Sabrina's mocking laugh on the phone. Don't be so silly. Mum. Close it, I said, my voice cold. Right now. Javier's fingers hit a final, decisive sequence of keys. He hit enter. He watched the screen for a long moment as the system processed. Done, he said, letting out a breath. He turned the monitor to face me. I saw the digital receipts. Account closed. Account closed. HELOC frozen. New account active. It is 10:25 in the morning, Javier said, looking at his watch. In less than 35 minutes. You have taken back control. They are locked out. The firewall is up. Mrs. Vance, 5 miles away, in a strip mall coffee shop. Sabrina was stirring a too expensive latte. She and Marcus were waiting. The meeting they had told me about, the one where they needed the $20,000, was supposed to be at 11. I am telling you, Sabrina was saying, her voice a low, irritated buzz. She sounded weird on the phone last night, confused. I think she is losing it. Just get her to sign. Sab, Marcus said, rubbing his temples. He was sweating, despite the air conditioning. Just get the signature. That is all we need. She will sign, Sabrina said with a dismissive wave. She always signs. Just as she lifted the cup to her lips, her phone, sitting face up on the table, lit up with a ping, an email notification from Mountain Crest Bank. Subject alert, account status change. She tapped it open. Dear customer, this is to notify you that your joint savings account, number ending in 6002, has been closed at the request of a co-owner. The porcelain cup slipped from her fingers, shattering on the tile floor, splashing hot latte across her designer jeans. She did not even flinch. What? Marcus hissed. What is it? He did it, she whispered, her face pale. That bank guy, that Javier. He must have. She looked up at Marcus, her eyes wide with fury. No, not him. Her. The old woman. She did go to the bank. Before Marcus could reply, his own phone vibrated, not with a ping, but with a harsh, buzzing ring. The caller ID was a name he had blocked, but it came through anyway. He stared at it, his blood running cold. He hit accept. Where is it? Marcus. A low, gravelly voice said, no greeting. You told me 10 o'clock. It is 10:26. I am getting it. Marcus stammered, wiping his sweaty palms on his pants. The transfer. It is just a small delay. No more delays, kid, the voice growled. This is not a bank. I do not do extensions. You have 1 hour. 1 hour. Or I come to your house. And I am not coming for the money. The call ended. Marcus looked at Sabrina, his face ashen. The big project was a lie. The Apex money had been gone for a year, lost on bad bets. The $12,000 draw. The $20,000 they were about to ask for. It was to pay off a loan shark who was charging 50% interest. Ping. Sabrina's phone lit up again. Another email from the bank. Subject urgent. Account status change. Dear customer, this is to notify you that your home equity line of credit, number ending in 4492, has been suspended pending an internal fraud investigation. The word fraud seemed to hang in the air between them. Marcus stopped breathing. Fraud, he whispered. She did not just close it. She reported us. Oh my God, Sabrina. She reported us. We are finished. Sabrina's panic lasted only a second, replaced by a sharp, calculating rage. She stood up so fast her chair screeched and fell over. She cannot have gone far. She is an old woman. She is still there. What? The bank! Sabrina yelled, grabbing her keys. She was staring at her phone, her thumb swiping to a different app, a blue dot on a map. I put "Find my phone" on that new cell I bought her, just in case she fell. She is still there. That blue dot is sitting right on top of the bank. They did not wait. They sprinted out of the coffee shop, leaving the shattered mug and the overturned chair behind, and threw themselves into their car. They sped out of the parking lot, tires squealing, racing toward the bank. I was standing in the main lobby, the bright, open atrium a sharp contrast to the secure, quiet office on the 3rd floor. I had done it. I felt a cold, clean relief, the first clear breath I had taken in 18 months. Javier was escorting me, his demeanor once again that of a professional banker. Though I knew he was still on high alert, I had made a conscious decision to walk out the front door. I had hidden in shame for too long. I was the victim. not the culprit. Ms. Albright has already escalated the forgery claim, Javier was saying quietly as we walked toward the exit. The legal team will be in touch with your lawyer. The most important thing now is your safety. He never finished the sentence. The main glass doors flew open with such force they shuddered against their hinges, the sound cracking through the lobby's polite hush. Marcus and Sabrina burst in. They did not look like the composed, successful couple they pretended to be. They looked like what they were cornered animals. Sabrina's hair was wild, her face pale and blotchy with rage. Marcus was soaked in sweat, his eyes darting around manically. Sabrina saw me, her face contorted. "What did you do?" she shrieked. Her voice was unrecognizable, a raw, ragged sound that silenced the entire bank. "You evil old woman, you've ruined us." The lobby froze. The woman at the deposit slip counter looked up, her pen hovering. The tellers stopped counting. Every eye in the building, customer and employee, snapped to us. Marcus was panting, his terror palpable. He lunged forward, ignoring Javier, and seized my arm. His grip was brutal, fingers digging into the bone. "Mom!" he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Mom, you have to tell them it was a mistake. It was a misunderstanding. You have to tell them to reopen the account. Tell them now." A tall security guard, Mr. Henderson, moved quickly. "Sir," he said, his voice a firm baritone. He placed a hand on Marcus's chest. "Sir, you need to let go of her arm. Now." "Get out of the way," Marcus bellowed, and he shoved the guard. It was a full-bodied, desperate push. Mr. Henderson stumbled back, his professionalism giving way to shock. "This is family. This is my mother. You stay out of this." While Marcus was focused on me, Sabrina spotted Javier, who had positioned himself slightly between us. Her rage found a new target. "You!" she screamed, stabbing a finger at his face. "You did this. You helped her. I am going to sue you. I am going to sue this whole bank. You will be fired. You will be living on the street. Do you hear me? You are fired." Her tirade meant nothing. Marcus was the one unraveling. He grabbed my other shoulder, his grip agonizing, and began to shake me. He was shaking me, his mother, in the middle of the bank lobby, his face inches from mine. "You do not understand," he sobbed, tears mixing with the sweat on his face. "They are going to kill me, Mom. Do you hear me? They are going to kill me. They are coming for me. Mom." The noise, the shouting, the gasps from the onlookers. It all seemed to fade into a distant roar. He was still shaking me, but I felt strangely grounded, as if I were made of stone. The terror he was trying to inject into me had no place to go. I had nothing left to fear from him. I felt a profound, chilling stillness. I stopped resisting. I simply looked up, past the tears and the panic, and met my son's eyes. "Get your hands off me. Marcus." My voice was not loud. It did not have to be. It was clear, and it cut through his panic like a shard of ice. The lobby was utterly silent, save for Sabrina's ragged breathing. He was so stunned. His hands dropped from my shoulders as if he had been burned. He stared at me, his mouth open, the frantic sobs caught in his throat. I calmly straightened the lapels of my coat. "You are not just livid," I said, using the word that had been churning in my mind, the word for this story. "You are criminals." "Mom?" He tried again, his voice a pathetic whisper. The terror was still there, but now it was tinged with a dawning horror. "No," I interrupted, and the word was final. I am not your mom. Your mum died 18 months ago. The woman you are looking at is Eleanor Vance, and Mom certainly died the moment you traced her signature to steal her home. Sabrina, seeing the legal disaster unfolding, tried to change tactics. She burst into theatrical tears. "We are sorry," she wailed, clutching at Marcus's arm. "We made a mistake. We just made a terrible mistake." I looked at her, my face devoid of any emotion. "A mistake," I said, my voice as cold and clean as the marble floor, "is when you spill milk. Sabrina, forging federal loan documents to steal a senior citizen's equity is a felony." Mr. Henderson, the guard, had moved back to my side. He spoke into his shoulder mic, then looked at me. "Mrs. Vance, the police are en route." The blood drained completely from Marcus's face. Sabrina's manufactured sobs choked off into a strangled gasp. My gaze moved from them, past them, and settled on Javier. He was watching me, his expression unreadable. I gave him a small, definitive nod. "Mr. Javier," I said, my voice ringing with the clarity of my old directorial role. "I want to formally press criminal charges for felony fraud, forgery, and financial elder abuse against Marcus Vance and Sabrina Vance. Here is my evidence." I held up the tote bag in my hand. As if on cue, the front doors opened again, this time with a quiet, official swish. 2 uniformed Denver police officers stepped inside. I did not wait for them to ask questions. I turned, my back straight, and clutched the handle of my overnight bag, the bag containing Arthur's secret passbook. I started walking. I walked right past my son, who stood frozen, his face a mask of complete, catatonic ruin. I walked past my daughter-in-law, who had sunk to her knees, her empty threats silenced. I did not look back. I did not say another word. I pushed open the glass doors and stepped out onto the sidewalk. I took a deep, shuddering breath of the clean, cool Denver air. It was the first truly free breath I had taken in years. My phone, the one I paid for, buzzed in my bag. I pulled it out. It was a text from the locksmith. "On site. Ready to begin. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, like this video, and show your support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people."